live. And welcome everybody to Crush This, a Monster Truck podcast. My name is Brad Shaw. I haven't done this intro in a long time, so hopefully we're live. I'm having a bit of technical issues. Are we live, Cheech? Give me a thumbs up if we're live. Okay, we are live. It still says schedule on my end. Cheech is here with me. We have Preston Perez of Team Scream Racing on the show tonight. Just want to do a little bit of plugging of sponsors and everything like that. So we have recently just launched our merch store. We have a couple designs up right now. We have this design here, which is what we call our league shirt. So it's kind of the AMA motocross, supercross style logo. Then we have our big, bad, and blown shirt, Cheech's personal favorite. What is going on with my screen here? I don't know what's going on there. There we go. Okay, hold up. Sorry about that. Bunch of technical issues. And then we have our keep the rubber side down, shiny side up shirt, my personal favorite. We have more on the way. And then you guys have seen the whole Monster Truck Canucker Angry Beaver thing that we've done. Well, this is Cheech's logo. We have this logo. We have the Dan Cheech Agosh logo, finally. So Cheech is laughing in the background there. I love it. It turned out so good. Our merch store, we have it up on Spreadshirt. It's going to be on our website coming up. I'm working on a website right now as well. Intro, a bunch of technical stuff happening, but we have Preston Perez on the show, and we'll also get to our sponsors once we get into the show, and we'll play our 2 short ads here, then the intro. All right, guys.
This isn't your typical motorsports podcast. You're listening to Crush This, a monster truck podcast presented by High Octane Coffee and J Concepts. A show where we take you inside the minds of your favorite drivers, past and present, of the monster truck industry. And now, your hosts, Brad Shaw and Dan Cheech. Buckle in. The show starts now.
What's going on, guys?
And welcome.
Oh, we got a little delay here, man.
Oh, sorry, there was a delay there. I'm using a different computer, so I do apologize.
Oh man, goodness, but you know, hey, how's it going, Brad? Want to also thank High Octane Coffee. I think there we go. High Octane Coffee, J Concepts, JB Skill Graphics, Justin Stories, Nick Davis and Back Channel Productions, 6B Apparel, MTRC and Hall Brothers Racing. Thank you so much for all your guys' help and everything you guys do. Go check out all that going on. And let's just say I have a weekend off. It's Easter. I think Preston also has a weekend off too. So we're all same thing with Brad. I don't know if you guys believe in Easter over there in Canada. So
yes, we do.
Oh, okay, double checking. So I'll be in Canada next week. I'll be in Hamilton, Ontario.
You're just in the wrong side of Canada, though.
Well, we're in Canada. So anyway, let's say hi to Preston. How's it going, man? Long time no see you. You were in our second or third episode ever as a
Yeah,
podcast.
you told me that. I thought I was in a later episode than that, but that's pretty impressive.
Well, we all kind of go back a bit, with it always kind of comes up doing rigs or rods and all that. We all kind of came from that. Let's talk about your journey. People know that you have been around the sport for quite a few years now. You've been with a couple different teams. So let's start at the beginning. How did you fall into the love and passion of monster trucks?
Yeah. You guys can hear me still good, right?
I think so.
Okay, cool. I just want to make sure before I go off. All right. Yeah, no, I was just a fan. I loved it ever since I was a little kid. I would go to my hometown was actually Spokane, Washington. That's where I grew up. So my go-to show every year as a kid was Spokane Arena, and I just went for a long time. And I think it was 2008. I went to my first pit party, and Scott Heaton was there on the floor. And I had asked him if I could get old Kevin Lewis's autograph. And I think I was maybe like 11 or 12. And this was before Facebook, social media, and all that. So back then, I mean, it was kind of a surprise when a kid came up to you and knew who a driver was that was pit crew that may have drove once or twice. So he was pretty shocked. He kept me down there, ended up letting me sit in a couple trucks. I think I sat in Bulldozer, which was pretty sweet. And then let me announce on the microphone, say like welcome race fans, and turned out he was from the same hometown. So my mom was a barber at the time, so she basically offered him free haircuts for life, and he would come in after each show and bring me merchandise. I still have a shirt that says "To Preston" from Tom Mintz from like Grand Rapids back then, and I'm sure Tom had no idea who he was autographing it to. But yeah, as I got older, he said like if I could pay for my own plane ticket to Tacoma Dome, that he would take me with him. And then I did that. He gave me my first like behind the scenes experience meeting drivers, and I know I got to dump like a quart of oil in Dan Evans' Hot Wheels and hung out with them a little bit. And basically just as I got older, he started giving me phone numbers for the Groth twins, Roger, and he opened the door basically. And from there I just ran with it and made opportunity for myself, whether it was just volunteering or going and hanging a club help, hanging banners at Monster Jam, just anything I had to do to get my foot in the door. I didn't quite know what direction I was going, where I was going to land. It was one of those just work hard until somebody notices you.
So did you ever had an idea of thinking of taking, I know you took a whole completely different route than a lot of people would normally do, but with your access to opening the door kind of through the Monster Jam Paxton area, were you ever considered working in the Paxton shop? Were you ever considered working for Feld or anything like that? Did you ever consider that?
Well, I tried to get in with Monster Jam for a while. As far as the crew guy route, I mean, a lot of people were advising me at the time. It was starting to begin with the whole, if you're a crew guy, you're never going to become a driver type deal, because they didn't want to lose their crew. Like if you had a good crew guy, they don't want to advance a good crew guy up to a driver's seat, because then you're losing a good mechanic. So that's when that was starting to come around. I mean, if I knew it would be a possibility to put all my eggs in one basket and work hard, I didn't care if it took 11, 12 years. I would have done it if it was going to be, a guaranteed driver's seat. But I was worried that like if I went down that route, I'd work hard, and then nothing would ever happen. And so that's kind of why I stuck with the independent route, because I figured if I was going to have a chance, I might as well just stick with an independent team. And somebody eventually, like I said, if you work hard forever, like I didn't put a timestamp on it. I actually listened to another podcast the other day, the Gears and Nachos one with Bryce and Adam, and they had one. It was called "Is Passion Enough?" And I listened to that podcast, and like Bryce was saying, if you put a timestamp on a dream, most of the time that's where you go wrong. Like you shouldn't put a time frame. So I figured like if I work for 30 plus years volunteering, like somebody has to give me a chance eventually. And I'd say I got pretty fortunate with getting into a driver's seat as quickly as I did. But the way I saw it was, whether it was a year into volunteering and working or 20 years, it was going to happen eventually, because I wasn't going to give it up.
You know, being from the Pacific Northwest and, you know, the West Coast of the United States, there's a plethora of teams. You mentioned the Groth twins, Roger Steidel. You got Bill and Lorna Payne out there. You have a plethora of teams to go with out there, in the Sturgis team, which, you know, gave you your first shot behind the wheel. Talk about, you know, meeting the Sturgis team and how that happened to lead to you getting the driver's seat of Nasty Boy.
Yeah. So basically, like I said, Scott basically was the first one that got me my foot in the door. So me and my mom, like I said, I grew up in Spokane. Well, we ended up making a move to the western side of Washington. So we moved to Renton at the time, and that was pretty close to the Seattle area, where Roger Steidel was based out of. So that's when Scott was like, "Hey, I heard you're going to be moving over there. Let me give you some phone numbers." So I started volunteering with them, and I quickly found out, because going into it, I never knew, like I was never given advice of like, if you want to do this, put the phone away. You know what I mean? Put the phone away. You don't want to don't just sit there, take pictures, don't geek out. Like, you know what I mean? Like nobody ever like gave me that advice and told me, if you want to make it, you gotta know your stuff. You gotta know the mechanics. You gotta be willing to work. And I was willing to work, but I was still so young, I would say. Like I was just barely a teenager still. And I was so fascinated that I got to even be in a monster truck shop. I didn't quite understand like any of the mechanics, like when to put the phone down and not geek out over it. You know what I mean? After being a fan for so long, and like not to knock being a super fan either, you know what I mean? Because I'll still say I'm a super fan to this day. But when it comes down to like, you really want to get in the industry, like I didn't know at the time. So it wasn't really working out. I mean, I didn't know any mechanics growing up with a single mom or anything like that. So I got it pushed out a little bit, I'd say, kind of gave up on it for a little bit there. And that's when like I was just a normal kid for a while, going to high school, playing rigs of rods every single night with my buds and all that. And I think we were in a Skype call one time, and it was one of my buddies. It was like Robert Codeness or whatever he played. And then he was like, "Hey, you got to meet this guy, Dallas." And I was like, "Yeah, okay." And then Dallas Glenn Rogers gets in there, and he starts doing his announcing like he does, and all his announcing skits and all that. Then he talks about how he's from Washington, or he's living in Washington. And then I'm like, "Well, hey, I live in Washington." He talks about how like he drove for Kelvin Raymer before, and how he works with Bill Payne, and how he's at the Tacoma Dome crewing. And I was like, "Well, hey, I was at the Tacoma Dome crewing." And he was like, "You were?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then he was saying how he was with Rick Swanson. And then I put two and two together, and I was like, "Hey, I think you were the guy that like asked me for a couple zip ties or whatever." And he was like, "Oh yeah." And so I didn't have a face to the name. And then we kind of just figured it out there that we met each other without realizing it. And then I kind of told him my story at that point. I was like, "Yeah, dude, I don't really know a whole lot of mechanics. Like I barely know how to use electrical tape or anything. I just didn't really grew up and lived with my grandparents, sheltered my whole life type deal. Like, what do I do? Do you have any advice?" And then he was like, "Why don't you come out and help Bill and Lorna? Because they're the perfect people that will take the time to actually teach you the stuff." So that's where it was the whole, like, my passion to want to do this. I was willing to do whatever it took. So like I took a ferry over to where they're at, Port Orchard, just to go work for free. Like I wasn't expecting anything out of it. And it turned into me being there. I was supposed to be there for, I think, a couple days. And then me and Bill hit it off, and I ended up staying out there for like 2 months straight, doing first quarter prep. Did the whole thing free. But like Bill, he liked me, and he was like, "Hey, dude, like, you want to stick around?" I think he was going to send me home at one point, because that's when they were building identity theft. And he was worried that, like, me being a super fan, I'm still a kid, that I was going to take pictures or whatever or post it. But I was like, "Nah, dude, like I get it. Like I get, you know what I mean? Keep it a secret. I respect it. Like I'm here to work. You know what I mean? I did whatever it took." So that's where the first get to go on the road experience came, where I in the summer, he was like, "Hey, summertime, you want to come out? I'll pay you some to come go on the road and just crew. So that was my first offer, an opportunity to go out on the road. And it was going on the road with him, being ladder guy for the ride truck, taking people's tickets, buckling them in. Sam Sturgis was at a show in St. George, and he noticed me. He saw me just working the ride truck ladder. And then he came up to me because that was around the time Ronnie had already passed. I think it was 2014. And Travis Sturgis was driving there. But Sam came up to me. He was like, hey, I'm just looking for a couple kids to come join the team. He wasn't really specific about driving. Like, I was just like, oh, hey, that's cool. Sam Sturgis is talking to me. Like, sweet. Like, he notices me and thinks I'm doing a good job. That's awesome. But I was like, all right, here's my phone number, whatever. Like, that's cool. I didn't know that anything was ever going to come of it. And it was quite a while that he had called me. Like, that was, I think, June of 2014, and time had passed. Like, the whole rest of the year had passed. I'd gone back to school, finished my senior year. And then I was on my way home on the school bus going to my friend's house. And then I get a phone call. It's like, hey, this is Sam with the monster trucks. I'm like, yeah, I know who you are. He's like, how'd you like to come drive? And at that point, I was just like, no way. And then I forgot what it was. It didn't work out right away. But then he offered me an opportunity to go work with Casey Jones with the jet trains, because I had a whole little stigma there where I was crewing on jet trains and wheel stander for Casey Jones. And I'm glad I did that, because he's the one who really like taught me the whole like common sense and how to use my brain to think mechanically. Like, he would sit down and be like, okay, look at this generator and tell me like just the internal parts of it and tell me what makes sense about it. And why do you think this goes here and this goes there? Like, you know what I mean? He just gave me a whole breakdown mechanically and really taught me how to think mechanically. And if I never did that, I would have suffered a lot more than I did going into it. But I did that whole deal, and then Casey saw my passion for monster trucks, how it almost like brought me to tears that I wasn't doing it. And it was Casey that made the call and was like, hey, Sam, like, you really got to let this dude go on your team. You really got to give him a chance. And that's when Sam was like, all right, we'll try you out. And then I went to Yuma, drove Nasty Boy, and that's where it first started. That's when I finally got my actual foot in the door to drive.
So pretty much you went outside of the monster truck realm to get back into the monster truck realm to basically find yourself into that scenario. So you kind of took a step back, recollect yourself, have guidance from someone that was outside the industry, and basically gather up yourself, your own information to prepare you what you have done now. Because the common sense part is very, very key, especially when you go from different teams to either be there full time or sometimes, try to help out whoever, but still having that common sense helps you out in that scenario. So in this type of period, you were with Sturgis, and how did you get involved with Vaughters? That's kind of a big leap. I know, I forget what happened between that, if you joined other teams, but you had a first tier run with Vaughters. And how did that scenario happen? Because that's a big gap going from the West Coast all the way across the United States.
Right. So, I mean, and this is where, like, okay, I'll be real. Like, so at that point, it's like a lot of people think too, once you hit the dream and you get to drive, that it's over there. Like, you hit the top, you're doing, like, you finally drove, but like, it definitely, it doesn't end there. Like, it was still a struggle. Like, I get there, got to drive, but at the end of the day, like, I was still a greenhorn with all this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I had never even moved a monster truck before I was told to drive it. So when I got in the truck first ever, I think I maybe started Cali Kid one time when I was with Bill, but that was it. I never got to move a race truck or anything. So he's like, okay, get in it, moving around. This was the day of the show, like a few hours before, and I'm moving it in the parking lot. He's like, I remember him saying something like, why are you using the rear steer more than the front or whatever? Because I just didn't know what I was doing. You know what I mean? And first time hitting cars, was in front of people. Show was like absolutely, like, I know I did pretty terrible for I mean, not knowing what I did. Luckily, there was no building damage or anything like that. But, landing on the throttle, too hard on reverse. I did a lot of stuff that somebody typically would do if they've never driven a monster truck or had any much mechanical experience. So that's kind of what took me out of the seat, because I did 2 shows for him. And then it was an ordeal where it was like, well, hey, I'm going to take you out of the truck and just sit back and watch. And we're going to try to teach you a little bit more before we throw you back in, which is clearly, I mean, it's a smart business move. Totally understand. So I was watching, and then an opportunity came up. I guess somebody wanted to buy the truck. So at that point, he had to sell the truck. And then he pulled me aside and was like, hey, you're a really awesome guy. You've done really well for me. I'm not going to just kick you to the curb. So I was like, yeah, totally respect that. That's awesome. And then he was like, but I'm going to give you an opportunity to find somewhere else to go. And then I'm going to keep you around until you find somewhere else to go, and I'll help you. I'll call people if I have to, and I'll vouch for you. So it was me and Sam still had a really good relationship. It was just kind of one of the circumstances where you can't argue with a promoter if they don't want to hire a guy that didn't know what he was doing. If he's selling the truck, you can't obviously keep me around. So that's where that went down. And then I had called Bill Payne again at that point. And I said, hey, Bill, would you be willing to take me back? Because it had been some years now since I went on the road with him as a teenager. I said, this whole thing with Sam, it's not going to work out. You mind taking me back? And so he was like, yeah, cool. I actually need somebody to drive the ride truck. So I was like, all right, that's awesome. I'll come do that. So that was the next opportunity after Sam, sorry. And so I went there, and I'm a firm believer everything happens for a reason. Super happy I actually did that, because driving that ride truck was my saving grace. I would do shows where the rides would go on not even during pre-show, intermission, and after the show. I'd be given rides all day long while the show's going on, hours before the show, just driving around in a field. That thing had no self-centering, so I had no choice but to learn how to drive without self-center and just feel my way around. And the seat time that I got from doing a whole summer of just driving ride truck was absolutely phenomenal. That's one of my greatest blessings, I would say, I've ever had in my career, was to be able to do that. Because I'm telling you right now, driving a ride truck or just moving trucks around, it just makes you a good driver already. That helps a lot on top of knowing mechanics. So I did all that. And then I had a weekend off from Bill to go to the World Finals. I wanted to go to the World Finals because I'd been a fan for a long time. I had never been to the World Finals, and it was my one of my best friends still to this day, Daniel Donnelly. He was going to go to the World Finals for the first time, and I was like, no way. There's no way this dude is going to the World Finals for the first time, and I'm not going to be there. So I was begging my mom, trying to get her help, trying to plan it out. I was like, I got to go this year. I got to go. And we ended up getting it worked out, and then I went. It was 2015, the year Mikey won, ironically. But I was there. I ended up going back in the pit area because I was hanging out with Daniel, and he had introduced me at that point to Vodders. So that's when I first actually met Mike, and they were working on the truck, getting it ready for the show, and I had helped him a little bit. And that's when I didn't really shake, I shook his hand, but I didn't really have a full blown conversation with Mike because, it was work time getting ready for the show, but it was very brief. We exchanged numbers, and that was it. And then once me and Bill parted ways, I just started calling him. I just called Mike, and I was like, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but I was in the World Finals. I helped you out a little bit there. If you need a crew guy, give me a call. Totally ignored. I don't know if he just missed it, didn't see it. So I called again 2 days later. I think the second time too, he didn't even respond or whatever. He didn't take me seriously, but then gave it another week, and I was like, man, I really want an opportunity somewhere. I had given calls to, I don't even know however many other people, but I was just desperate to do whatever it took to get my foot in the door somewhere. So I called him again, and he finally answered, and he was like, I actually might need a crew guy. And he's like, how about flying out here? I don't really have a place for you to stay. You might have to stay in my basement. But I was like, I don't care, dude. Like, I'm ready. I will do whatever it takes. I wasn't even asking to drive, because that's one thing I learned too. Like, as a young kid, like, if you want to drive, don't ask. Like, don't beg and plead. Like, just work hard. Somebody will notice you. Somebody will let you drive eventually. So I was just like, cool. I don't care how long it takes or what the opportunity leads me to. I'm down. Let's go. So that's where that happened, and everybody saw where that went. I crewed, and once JR left and JR Seasock left, and I think it was between me and a couple other guys, and it was my seat time in Nasty Boy. Just the fact that I had driven a monster truck and driven ride truck, that got me the opportunity for him to pull the trigger and be like, well, I think Preston's going to try driving the bus. And it was my third show ever, and you were there, Brookville, PA. And the second day was a lot better, where I hit the school bus, pulled a little slap wheelie, and Mike was like kicking his leg up, all excited. And I go to a show after that, win a freestyle event. Like, it was night and day difference. Like, you look at me and Nasty Boy, and then right there, it was like a totally different human being that was driving. And at that point, it's just opportunity, another door opened, and here I am today.
Somehow I magically became his crew chief on that Saturday night show, and I was just there to watch, and before you know it, I'm fixing the drive shaft in this truck, and I was like, okay, it's going, let's go. Yeah, it just dropped. That's all.
Yeah, it wasn't even my fault. I think I went over like a little racing roller, didn't even get any air, just like a whole shot, and then took a turn, and the drive shaft just falls out.
So talk about your experience driving the bus, because you look at it from the outside and you're just like, the visibility looks absolutely horrible, because normally you'd have the windshield right in front of you. Not in this truck. It's like way out in front of you. How was that getting adjusted to a truck where you could hardly see anything probably out of it?
Yeah, it had. I'd like to say that, like, for me, that's what I had to get used to right away, because my seat time and driving in Nasty Boy was so far. I only did like a freestyle exhibition in it and one little other show, but my first getting into the seat, starting to make a name for myself, was the bus. So that's all I really knew. I didn't go from getting used to visibility in a regular truck and then go into that being like, what the heck is this? So, honestly, I think there's pros and cons to a normal truck versus that, because you can definitely see the floorboards a lot better. Like, there's almost more visibility up close to you going up over an obstacle driving that truck versus when the hood of a truck is kind of blocking your way. Because the bus, the nose extends so far out, there's just this big open space right in front of you where you can see everything. Like, when you're approaching the cars, you can see the cars a lot better. And then the cool bus sign, a lot of people don't know this, but you can actually see out of the cool bus sign in the front. It's like Jurassic Attack, where you can see out of the eyes. They've got that special material. You can look through it. And so, that always helped. There really wasn't a lot that was actually blocking my view. I'd say the corners sometimes blocked the starting light, and I couldn't see the starting light. But otherwise, I had really no other complaints about visibility.
Now, you had your first tier with Vaughters, and then I remember one show, I think in 2019, you were with Dylan Finley, I think. Dylan. And so let's go from there. And then you had your time with Vaughters your second time. And then how did you get connected with Team Scream?
So with Team Scream, I was done working with Mike. I didn't actually have any plans of what to do next. I kind of was like, I'll just enjoy the home life for a little bit. And I had gotten a normal job that only lasted for maybe about 2 weeks. I was working at a UPS as a midnight stalker, package handler. Just something to do. And then I'm just sitting on the couch one night, and Jim calls me, and he's like, hey. And I'm just like, hey, what's up? And he's like, do you want to come drive? It was another one of those deals. Like, you want to come do do the stadium tour, and he explained the whole situation where Chris was supposed to do it, but he's in his senior year of college. So he was talking to his professors, and the way the scheduling was, it wasn't going to work out. And he had a list of guys that were cleared for Monster Jam. And I was next on the list, I guess. And he had told me he knew that I was available because he was on the phone with Mike, talking to Mike. And I guess Vaughters told Jim that I was available. He was like, hey, why don't you give Preston a call? He's available. And then Jim didn't know until Mike basically vouched for me, and which that was pretty cool. And yeah, I just, at that point, I'm like, first stadium. I've never done a stadium. Why would I turn down an opportunity like that after all the passion and years that I've put in trying to get to this? Why would I just throw that all away? That'd be dumb. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And I was a little nervous at first because, you know, those guys, they run hard. They're not there to back down, and all the late nights. I wasn't really worried about the late nights, but it was also like, can I hang on the mechanical side of things? Like, can I hang, like, if I have to, I didn't know if I had to know how to rebuild motors and transmissions and all that stuff. Cause, you know, Corey Rummel, he's a smart dude. He can rebuild motors, transmissions in a parking lot if he had to. So I didn't know if I had to have that expertise, and that made me a little nervous at first, but you know, it's been awesome. I have no complaint at all. This is one of the best opportunities I've ever had. Every opportunity I've had has been absolutely awesome, and I wouldn't go back and change anything that's ever happened in my life, because I'm a firm believer everything happens for a reason. And if I wasn't in a seat or taken out of a seat or going somewhere else at a certain given time, I may not be where I am right now. And it all worked out, and I'm still having fun with it. I'm actually home right now. This is the first time I've been home since January 2nd, and just did Atlanta Motor Speedway. And so I'm home for a couple days, and I'm going to go out to Syracuse this weekend for Easter weekend.
You know, before you started the stadium tour, you did do a arena tour driving Monster Mutt Rottweiler. It was the Rottweiler truck at the time. Talk about that experience running in the smaller arenas, you know, with your first experience in the Monster Jam kind of realm there. Yeah,
no, that was pretty awesome. I had always wanted to be a part of Monster Jam for the longest time, of course. I had done one other show in higher education in 2018, the Halifax, Nova Scotia Speedway. And that was very much like an old school feel. Like they had just cars and vans. There wasn't even dirt leading up to the cars. It was one of the last old school setup Monster Jam shows that they had. And it was cool to be a part of, but that was really it. It was just a one-off deal, and I'd still been wanting to actually finally do Monster Jam for a first quarter, and it just came up. I know Corey Snyder was done because he had Toxic, and he was starting to do something with that, get his own team going. And then, Mike was like, hey, you want to come drive for the Triple Threat Series? And that's basically how it worked out. At that time, I was the candidate because I had been the one that had been driving the bus and seasoned in it during the summertime, so it only made sense. Send videos to Feld, and they were happy, and they wanted to do the whole Monster Jam University thing, so I got to go down there and do that. And I think I was running Becky's El Toro at MJU, so that was a neat experience to go drive one of their trucks in the field and learn. And then, it was first weekend out in Nashville, and I was super nervous. Tom was there. Sat me in his pickup, and we had a talk. He gave me a bunch of advice, and then went out there and won racing in the first show against Colton in the finals, and that was pretty sweet. So just going from there, I just did the best I could. I always did the best I could, and just tried to show Feld that I belong there. I wasn't going to do building damage, do anything stupid. And, I didn't try to be that whole tour. It wasn't about trying to be a rock star and win everything. It was just about getting through it, showing them that I could do the job. And I'd like to hope that that's the way they saw it, and that's what I did. But it was unfortunate. The tour got cut short because of the whole COVID thing. So I think my last show was Toledo, Ohio, in Taurus. It was one of those weird weekends where we were off of Triple Threat, but we were just doing a regular show. But we were doing that show. We were supposed to do Tupelo, Mississippi the next weekend, and then we got the call. And it was pretty cool. It was fun while it lasted, but that was really it. That was my Monster Jam experience at that time. It was like a half 2020 season and one show back in 2018, and I was down for a little bit, wondering, like, was that it? Did I work hard and get to that point for it to all go away? Because nobody knew what was going to happen with the way the world was going. But yeah, when I got that call for Jim again, like, come do stadiums now, it was like, yeah, I mean, this is what I was hoping and praying for, and here I am now.
So what has Jim and the crew have helped you out to improve your mechanical side of it? Because a lot of the times they're just like, even Vaughters probably taught you a lot. You're with the two teams where a lot of times you're by yourself most of the time, or you have to know what breaks and what not, and you have to come out of the truck and figure out yourself, okay, what just happened. So what have you, with the two, what have you improved on since the days of driving with the Nasty Boy and stuff like that?
I mean, honestly, sometimes, people say I don't give myself enough credit, and sometimes I don't think I even give myself enough credit. But like, I kind of surprise myself. Like, there's a lot of stuff that, I already knew going into it. There's little things and ways that, like, Jim would do something different, that he would teach me, like something as simple as putting corners together. There's sometimes something so simple like putting a corner together. Sometimes the planetary doesn't want to go on, the sun gear doesn't want to line up, and third members don't want to go in. You know what I mean? Like, stuff that I know how to do, but I would run into certain problems. And then, like, Jim sometimes had a way where he taught me to make it easier. And I picked up on certain things like that. Mike's done that too. Like, sometimes he's like, take a piece of cardboard and shove it in the spindle to keep the axle straight, and then the planetary will go right on. And like, nobody ever really knows that or does that. Like, what, shove a piece of cardboard in there? You know what I mean? Like, just little tips and tricks of things that I already knew. But I'd say the thing that I didn't know how to do at all that Jim taught me, and I'd say I've been getting really good at, and I could tackle by myself at this point, is fiberglass work. Because there's been a lot of rolling over on my end at the beginning of the season, and I've gone 5 or 6 weeks now without rolling over in a show. Had a little mishap in practice in Jacksonville that not a lot of people know about, but I did roll over in practice. I joined the rollover in practice club back in Jacksonville. But yeah, no, just I pretty much do all that on my own. Anytime I roll the axe truck, no matter how bad a shape it is, I'm the one putting it and fiberglassing it together. And I've been pretty proud of that, because I didn't have a clue on how to fiberglass before that. Because with Vaughters, he sends everything to Trey to get repaired for fiberglass. So we never did any fiberglass with that. Like, I rolled the bus over one time in my whole entire career of driving for him. I only rolled that truck one time, and it was like such a disaster of so many different pieces. Mike was pretty much the one. I was there helping him anywhere I could, but he already had a plan in his head how to get it back together. And he was leading the charge on that one, because it was a Wednesday show, and we had to be in Wayne City, Illinois on I think it was a Friday or Saturday. We only had a day in between. We were on the road, but otherwise I had never rolled over to where I even had to do much body work, because I always tried to take care of the truck, not really do a whole lot of damage. And when I rolled the mutt body, it was all Lexan and plywood and zip ties and whatever I could do to get it to last until the company gave us a new body. So this is really the first time in my career that I've had to fix my own body from rolling over.
So let's talk about this last weekend in Atlanta. You know, the stadium tour that you're on kind of has a unique track for this year, which is we've kind of seen this track. You know, we saw it at San Antonio the one year, kind of very similar layout. You know, you start in the middle, kind of, you know, go on the berms. But in Atlanta, you guys had, you know, what they did last year, which is the straight line, and you made it to the finals one of the nights on one of the events. Talk about Atlanta and that experience, because, you know, that's such a different venue for Monster Jam and monster trucks. How was your experience there?
Yeah, it was awesome. It was a little intimidating at first, looking at everything, but I mean, after a while walking the track, it really was no different from what we've been doing all year. Everything was just so spread apart. And I mean, a lot of the stuff there too, like the school bus hit and everything. Like, I mean, I've hit school buses at fair shows and all that. So it was one of those, like, don't let the pressure get to me. Like, just have fun. If I win or lose, it doesn't matter. I'm here to just gain more experience. And I mean, it ended up working out pretty good in racing. I mean, I've been in the beginning of the year, my racing wasn't really that great because I was still so new. Like, I wasn't just learning a whole new truck. I had never done stadiums, this caliber of lineup or anything. It was a whole new track. So, I mean, I was getting a lot of slower times, not really picking up on it. But ever since El Paso, like, I don't know what it is. I've just been putting the helmet on, taking a deep breath, and just doing my thing, and it's been good. Like, I made semifinals in El Paso. I've made the first round bye the last 3 shows in a row, and then Atlanta made the finals there. And I mean, that was a straight line. So I had a little bit more experience coming in from that, because a lot of the fair shows that we do that I've done in the past, there's a lot of straight line, and Hagerstown Speedway, Monster Jam, that's straight line too. So I'd like to credit that to where maybe I just knew what I was doing a little bit more than some of the guys that had never run straight line before. Because I remember Tyler telling me he's a really awesome driver, of course, Gravedigger, and he said he had never done a straight line before in his life until this weekend. And I didn't even know that. But now that I look back and think on it, it's like, well, yeah, a lot of these guys do the arena pod, or the stadium courses don't have that. So I'd say that's where my advantage came in, is just having a high horsepower truck and just knowing when to hit the throttle and when to check up and all that. So it worked out.
So with that, you always been driving different trucks and stuff like that, and with the Axe truck now, which was a racehorse type deal, was it getting kind of different getting used to with some of the trucks that you've been driving around in, or you know, after a few shows it got a little bit easier?
Yeah, definitely. This is definitely my favorite truck that I've driven at this point. I mean, because I've been cut loose in this truck too, so I've had a lot less. Because I always try to respect the equipment best I can. There hasn't always been the case for me. I mean, I've made my fair share of mistakes. Everybody knows my famous bus crash, hitting the race lane crooked there. But you know, like this season in this truck, like, this is the first time really that, like, you know, my team owner that I'm working for was like, you know, we're here to do good. We're here to win. Like, yeah, we got to make money and we got to think about those things. But, like, I want you to look good, and I want you to do what you can to go out there and be the best for yourself and win. So this year I had a whole new mentality, and I've gotten to, like, air the truck out more than I would air out any other truck, do new tricks that I felt more comfortable to try. Like, I've been doing a lot of bicycle attempts this year, and you'd never catch me doing that in the bus, because I didn't want to roll that thing over or cause any damage to any of that truck. Or if I was filling in for other people, my job was always get through the show, do my job, make the driver, promoter, everybody happy. And, like, this whole opportunity has just been totally different. So I've definitely getting to stretch my legs in this truck compared to the other trucks. That's been a whole night and day difference too.
Now, you are one of the rare people in this sport that I've actually got to hang out with and meet. I remember I was at the Lincoln Speedway show for the Renegade Tour, and all of a sudden I'm just walking around doing stuff. All of a sudden I look over and it's like, is that Preston? Are you serious? Yeah. I didn't expect to see you there. And that was really cool. You actually bought me my Chick-fil-A the next day. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
But no, it's cool to be able to, you know, people that I've met, like yourself, Cheech and stuff, are in the industry. It's cool just to see the progress that you've made. And, you know, I remember something that Jim said from, I think it was one of the Throwdown videos. He's like, he expects his drivers to drive hard, you know, but you got to be in the shop fixing your crap up the next day, and that's one thing that I've like you mentioned with your driving, like you're able to sky it out more and push yourself, and it's shown, just in freestyles alone, you are skying that thing out. It's awesome to see your progress this year, and it's awesome, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Like I always try, like, I mean, even though he gives me the green light sometimes a lot of things, I still like to, I've tried to get more of like on the technical side of things with my freestyles and all that. Like big air is cool and everything, and I like it, but I also like, I've been trying to practice more of the slap wheelies and stoppies, all that stuff, or just having a nice fluid run. Like I think it's so cool when someone can just hit a jump and downside a ramp on the other side smooth. You know what I mean? Like to me, that takes control. That makes a good driver to get through a show and to finish in the top half without breaking anything. Like Atlanta Motor Speedway, Jim had said, he was like, hey, you go out there, I want you to do a good job, but if you don't break anything, take care of the truck, I'll let you go home. So I can see my grandma and all that, because I haven't seen her in a long time. And so I did the show, and I mean, I ended up finishing first night. I was 5th overall and then 6th overall. So I finished top half both nights. And I think I maybe lost a BKT sticker on the truck the whole entire weekend. So I don't always do that. I definitely, like I said, I've had my moments, but I try to pride myself on being I know Mark McDonald is one of my favorite drivers. He always did a really awesome job at half the time not tearing up the truck and winning. So that's kind of where I'm headed. I want to take my career to be a guy like that, where I'm not the reckless tearing up the truck every weekend, but I can still do a good job and perform well.
Especially with the how the stadiums and everything like that, and how they have the jumps. Now you're learning how to like in your mentality, I mean, you have to figure out, how to make something cool without destroying your truck. But then again, you gotta make something not lame to make it not lame, and
Right.
you try to keep the truck, stable, I guess. I mean, like, that's a very challenging thing to do. What did you try to do to prepare yourself a lot better to not go destroying the truck all the time, and how my mentality is like, how did you find the fine line between if you want to push it, you could, but you could still do a fantastic job just knowing your line. A lot of drivers, I don't think, know now what their line is. They're all way out, or they're very conservative. There's a very, very fine line of going, okay, you want me to turn it up, I'll turn it up. If you want me to be conservative, I can be conservative. So how did you start finding that niche?
I would say, I'd say also running the same track every week. That actually helps, because there's always slight differences. There's always going to be slight differences in a track week after week. You're never going to build it exactly the same, but having the same track each week, learning how a truck reacts to a certain jump, because I'm just super passionate about this. I watch, I care. I don't know if everybody else watches, but I really watch heavily and study, and I see okay, Ryan's hit this same jump every week and it's done the same thing every week. So then I'll watch it, and if I see that jump looks spectacular and looks cool, but it's not tearing up the truck, then I'll try it. And then it works for me. And then I incorporate that into my run almost every time. I start to plan and kind of have the same pattern. And I mean, we're going to a different place every week. Fans are seeing something different for the first time each week. So when I've been keeping with the same run and the same plan, for the most part, it works out. And then if it's going good and I can throw in a cool move in there or hit something different. Sometimes I take chances. Like in Jacksonville, the log hit was pretty abrupt, but I took a chance on it, and it ended up doing a pretty good sky wheelie and planning it, and it got stuck on the bump or on the rear end, and I ended up doing this little twist thing or whatever, and finished top 5 on a televised event in freestyle. And I mean, that's I've just been doing my thing and just having fun and not overthinking it and hitting things square. And you know what I mean? Like I've always been taught that driving for Mike, like go out there, hit things square and keep up the momentum. That's another thing. Make a lot of noise, keep up the momentum. And I watch Mikey too, like always running with Mikey. There was a lot of shows where he didn't necessarily get a lot of big air. He could go into a little show with just a little like crush car, van car in a hockey arena, virtually get no air, but win the whole thing because he was constantly keeping momentum and making noise and just hitting everything with a lot of speed. So, I mean, that's another thing. I mean, to find that fine line, just make a lot of noise too and keep up momentum. That helps you a lot.
You know, being on a tour with such heavy hitters, you know, you mentioned Ryan, Tyler, you got Bari, you know, Chucky. You're with a lot of seasoned veterans that have been around the sport for a long time. Who has helped you the most, you know, with the transition from being in the arenas to the bigger stadiums?
I'd say everybody, honestly. I mean, I'm a question asker. I always ask questions. I never know all the answers. I'll even ask people that are less experienced than I am. Like old Craig Champion has been on our tour and he's been doing an awesome job. And he's got a lot of mega truck experience, but he's new to the monster truck scene. And I mean, I'll even ask him. I'll see what he does, and I'll be like, "Hey, dude, how are you hitting this? How's it working for you?" And I'll ask Charlie, like, my truck has a spool front and rear, and I had asked Charlie, I was like, "Hey, you've driven a million different trucks. How do you drive? Like, have you ever driven a truck with a spool front and rear?" And I'll ask him advice on that. And I ask Ryan a lot of advice. I'll ask Tyler. I mean, it's really just anybody. If I'm walking the track and somebody's right next to me, or there's a driver, like I was walking the track and Bari was there, and I was like, "Hey, dude, how do you take these turns so fast?" And it doesn't always work for me. But I try to listen and I try to just do what people tell me. And sometimes it works out and sometimes I can't execute on it. But I'm just always trying to learn and do my best. And I'm still doing that today, just trying to learn and do my best. And hopefully this weekend it works out and future weekends to come.
So are you actually, with Team Scream, are you just right now part-time or you're actually with the team full-time?
So I'm here. I do leave after Wilkes-Barre. So Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania is my last show. And that was already set up and pre-planned before I even did my first show. Because obviously he had called me and he was like, "Well, you're basically filling Chris Kohler's spot while he's in college. But when Chris comes back, he's going to get his ride back, obviously. And then Jim's not going anywhere. Corey Rummel's not going anywhere. And then our current crew guy, Joe Foley, he's been with the team for a while. And he's already driven some in the past summers. And he's going to get the fourth truck. And he wasn't cleared quite yet to do Monster Jam this year. Otherwise, he probably would have. But he didn't have enough seat time yet. So plan is in the summertime, he's going to drive some more, get more seat time, and then he'll be the next guy to likely get into Monster Jam. And at that point, I could be a backup or a crew guy, but then there's still Craig. Craig is still a backup. I know Brad is still there. Brad Allen's hanging around. He's worked at the shop some during the weeks, and he's trying to get his foot back in the door a little bit there. So, I mean, I'm not from there. I'm not going to relocate. So I've got that show, Wilkes-Barre, and then I'm going to be at the World Finals, at least to hang out and crew for sure. So after that, it's really one of those, like, if he ever needs a fill-in or if he's in the area, I won't necessarily not ever drive for him ever again. So we're going to keep that relationship. But for now, I got other things I'm working on, and we'll see what comes of that afterwards.
Well, we got somebody in here talking some trash to you when you're good friends, Mr. Daniel Donnelly, saying Preston can't drive to save his life. He's going to finish dead last in East Rutherford, period.
Yeah, he might be right.
That dude's a character. And you mentioned Dallas Glenn Rogers earlier. That dude has been one of my best friends in this sport. Same with Cheech. Dallas. You can't have a dull moment around that guy.
No. Yeah, he's my brother from another mother. That's for sure.
Man.
His hand kill impressions like perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Man. Well, hey Preston, thank you so much for being on, man. It's awesome to have you on and hear the story between our last interview and now, and a little bit more, man. It's pretty cool to learn about your story and also about your time still pushing on.
Yeah, it's definitely, and like I said, once you reach the dream, it's not over. Like the working hard and the struggle is not over. I mean, there's still a lot of late nights, and I mean, to be home right now, honestly, this is a very rare thing. I mean, like I said, I haven't been home since January up till now, but I mean, even now, the fact Jim let me go home this week, like that was really awesome of him to give me that time. And it came with respecting the equipment too. If I would have gone out there and wadded up the truck, I'd be in Michigan right now fixing it. But I mean, I didn't leave the guys with anything to do but to wash the truck. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm going to go back to the shop again once I go back to Syracuse. I think everybody's taking Easter week off after that. But then once I do East Rutherford, I go back to Michigan, get the truck ready, do what I have to do for Wilkes-Barre. And yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of the work never ends. And every now and then you get a lucky break, get to rest. If you work your way up, pay your dues, you can get a couple weeks off here and there sometimes. But yeah, I mean, I'm just along for the ride, man. And I'm going on this crazy journey of life that we're all doing and taking every opportunity that comes. And if someone else calls me up to drive, I mean, cool. If no one does, then I mean, okay. You know what I mean? I'm here and I'm just enjoying the opportunity that I have. That's what's going on now.
Man, is there any social media people can follow you at?
Yeah, so my Instagram, it's real simple. It's literally just Preston Perez, no spaces, no periods or anything like that. I got really lucky on that one. I don't know how, because I'd imagine there's a lot of Preston Perez's in the world, and for some reason I got the easiest user. And then my Facebook page, I think if you search Preston Perez MT, it'll pop up. But that's about all I use. I still haven't hopped on the TikTok train or Twitter or any of that.
Man, for me, once again on Instagram is Dan Cheech Agosh. You find me also Dan Agosh on Dan Cheech Agosh on Facebook too, and I'll follow my RC on Facebook and YouTube. Brad, how about you?
You can follow me at the only monster truck Canucker on Instagram. Check out bradshawdesigns.com. Check me out on Facebook. Same thing, Bradshaw. His picture of a cartoonized me, which is kind of if you see Cheech's profile picture, it's going to be a shirt very soon. Working on a lot more merch for you guys. We have some awesome killer designs. And also I'll pop up the banner just quickly here for the shirt website, just so you can see it there. Go check that out, guys. We have a lot of designs right now and more to come. Just like we have our league shirt. We have our big bad and blown, Dan's favorite design, his kind of signature design that he wanted. And then we have the saying, keep the rubber side down and shiny side up shirt. We have that. And then eventually stickers of that will be on. It's covering Cheech's face. That's perfect.
His head is a
so
logo.
So we have that, and then we have my design, which I'm still kind of working on. So Preston, is awesome to talk to you, man. It's so cool being able to call you a friend and somebody that, you know, if just seen grown in the sport, and it's awesome, man, to see what you've done.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely very fortunate to be where I am. I mean, there's definitely, I worked hard to be where I'm at for sure, but it's also mixed with a lot of luck and a lot of fortune. Because I mean, there's guys out there that work just as hard or even harder, sometimes never get anywhere. And I mean, it's just never give up is all I can say. And I mean, be thankful for where you're at, no matter where you're at. If I wasn't driving monster trucks, if I still to this day had never driven a monster truck, I'd still be working at it. I'd still be doing what I can to get my foot in the door. And that's why you saw me at that show, that Renegade show, because no matter how far I make it, I could be doing Monster Jam World Finals, and I'll still never forget that I'm a huge fan and I love the sport for what it is. And you'll see me if there's a show within 2 hours from my house and I'm not doing anything, I'm going to be there just to hang out because I just absolutely love monster trucks. And I'll never lose that.
And I think that's important for people not to forget, because, you know, a lot of people, you know, can get burnt out with it. But if you stay true to yourself and true to being a fan still, you know, it's worth it. You know, like for me, it doesn't matter if the show is 4 or 5 hours away. I'm going. You know, especially the area that I live in. I've been to every monster truck show in this area for probably the last 10 years, and I've never missed one. So it just shows that, you know, the passion never dies.
Yep, exactly. I mean, I don't care if I'm driving or not driving. There's a show, I'll be there if I can. I mean, for the most part, I love to be a part of it and just be around monster trucks.
Man, that's awesome. Yeah, we're all like that. I'm the same way too. So, man, once again, next week, could have a special guest, old school. So, I'll let you know by tomorrow who it is. Actually, not by tomorrow, by Thursday. And we will let you know who. I have a phone call meeting with the person tomorrow. So, all I have to say is he is from Wisconsin. He's an innovator in the monster truck shot game, and so he has some cool stories. But once again, Brad, what's going on? I'm Dan TJ Gosh, and talk to your
Brad
friends.
Shaw. Yes, guys, make sure you check up on your friends and family. Mental health is huge. Right now, it is Autism Awareness Month. I am on the spectrum myself. So if you know somebody with autism, please, you know, just support them, support mental health in general, guys. Your life is worth more than losing you. And, you know, as we always say on the podcast, guys, until next week, keep the rubber side down and the shiny side up, everybody. Peace.